So welcome everyone to the first HARRP session of the semester. For those who do not know, HARRP stands for Holistic Academic and Research Reflective Practice. My name is Nahielly Palacios. I'm from Mexico. I'm a lecturer in education at the University of Manchester, and I work across multiple MA programs. And I will be facilitating our session today. What is HARRP? HARRP is an online developmental program designed to enhance researcher and academic reflexivity, to enhance peer-led learning, and the sense of community and shared understanding amongst academics and researchers at the University of Manchester and beyond. We see today that we have people joining us from different places. We do have a video introduction about the program if you are interested to know more about what we do, who we are, the pedagogical approach, and so on. And that is in Canvas, so I do invite you to watch that video. So today we're here to take a step back from our busy academic life. This is our third week at the University of Manchester. We started teaching and learning 3 weeks ago. So time to step back, pause, and reflect on the experience of being here, either as a student, a tutor, researcher, academic. And if you're not at the University of Manchester, I'm sure you're doing something related to academia, and that's when you need a time and moment to reflect. Hi, Ching, I can see you now. Yeah, there you go. See, beautiful, beautiful faces that I recognize. So today we're here then to create a space for reflection, understanding, and empathy, to deepen the understanding of how the intellectual aspects of engaging with the academic and research work are intertwined with personal feelings and experience. And to foster a sense of community, you're here because you decided to be part of this program. Before we start, I want to run a one-word check-in. And you can see from your screen, if you have a phone, with the phone, scan the QR code. If you don't have a phone, I can send you the link. How are you feeling about your academic journey? Whatever you are. Let's have a look. The responses. Ooh, excited. That's a good one. Enthusiastic. Supported. That's good. Confused. Yes, that's a lot. There's a lot of confusion over the year, I would say. Reflective. That's a good one. Yes. We have principles of interaction. I'll give you a couple of seconds to look at them. Yes, active participation. Whenever possible, do keep your camera on, your microphone on, whenever you are communicating with somebody else, and tell us if that's not possible. Confidentiality, we respect each other's views. We know that sometimes it's a bit difficult to share experience, so respecting that moment is important. And the one that a lot of people struggle with is this one: no advice given. So this is not a problem-solving session, a session for debate. This is a session where we focus on listening and understanding experience. So that's going to be the homework for everybody during this session. Today's session is called "What Does Think Like a Scholar Really Mean?"
Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here with you today. Thank you, Nahielly, for inviting me to join this panel and for creating such a meaningful space for reflection. It's a pleasure to share a little piece of my personal journey with you all. The moment I realized that I had too many ideas and they were often too general to be achievable, was a real turning point in my academic life. I've always been someone full of curiosity. Whenever I read something new or listen to a talk, my mind would immediately start connecting ideas, asking questions, imagining new possibilities. But over time, I noticed that my ideas, although exciting, were too broad. They sounded impressive in theory, but in practice, they were hard to shape into something concrete. I remember feeling both inspired and overwhelmed, like standing in a library with endless books, wanting to read them all, but not knowing where to begin. I was full of energy but lacked direction. That's when I started asking myself, what does it actually mean to think like a scholar? For a long time, I thought being a scholar meant being full of ideas, always thinking, analyzing, and questioning. But later, I realized that scholarly thinking isn't about the number of questions you ask, it's about which question you choose to stay with and explore deeply. As a teacher, I've always seen myself scholar first and then a teacher. The moment I step into a classroom, my mind naturally starts analyzing everything, the dynamics, students' reaction, the atmosphere. I often catch myself thinking, what if? What if I try this next time? Or why did that activity work better for that group? Mm, each session feels like a small research project full of reflection, emotion, and discovery. But there came a point when I realized I was analyzing too much, too quickly. My reflections were wide but not deep. I was collecting thoughts rather than insight. During my postgraduate studies, I remember my supervisor once smiling and saying, Mary, you're trying to do 5 research projects in one paper, which is not possible. I laughed, but it stayed with me. My enthusiasm for knowledge was my biggest strength and also my biggest challenge. I needed to learn to focus. That realization changed everything for me. I began to slow down and look at things differently. I learned that thinking like a scholar means giving yourself permission to go deeper rather than wider, to sit down with one idea, question it, reshape it, and let it grow slowly. I started to value silence and patience, those quiet moments when nothing seems to be happening, yet your ideas are nurturing underneath the surface. I also became more comfortable with uncertainty. Before, not knowing something made me uneasy, and now I see it as part of the process. In fact, I've learned that uncertainty is often where the most meaningful growth begins. Sometimes the best thing we can do as scholars is to admit, I don't know yet, and stay curious anyway. So, what does thinking like a scholar mean to me now? It means being curious, but also being patient with that curiosity. It's about balancing passion with precision, emotion with reflection. It's about learning to listen to yourself, to others, and to your subject. Thinking like a scholar is not about having all the answers. It's about living with the questions, nurturing them, exploring them, and allowing them to guide your growth. And I think once I understood that, I finally began to feel like a scholar. Not because I had reached a destination, but because I'd learned to enjoy the journey itself. Thank you so much for listening.
For me is I think it's being always curious and also developing the skill set to be able to channel that curiosity. So what I mean by being curious about things that interest us is to keep thinking why and how things work. So to identify pattern and phenomenon and explanation about phenomena around us, why things set up this way, why rules are set up in this way in our society. Are there any issues that we noticed, and how to improve provide recommendations for the society that help to make our society more bearable to live in. So along with that, curiosity is also using scientific methods to be able to fulfill that curiosity, not just using our subjective opinion. I think the world should be this way, but using the trainings and education we gain through our master, PhD, and also after, I think it's a lifelong learning process. We keep getting trainings about scientific methods and using those methods to raise questions, gather data, analyze data, and then also address those kind of questions and then show recommendations to improve things around us.
Can I ask you, Sky, about whether you can remember of a specific moment in your academic life when you felt that you found your scholarly voice, your academic voice?
Yeah, I was about to come to that as well.
Yes.
When I think it's the time when I was first as an international student studying in the UK during my master degree, later probably early years in my PhD degree. At that time, I think being a scholar, it must be so distant in a way that only people who are well established in academia, people that you don't even see, probably you only read in a book, or I imagine people might be, like Einstein, or older philosophers buried in books in their office, or Sheldon, like Big Bang Theory, that is so focused on generating theories and only smart people can interpret and understand what they're talking about. But then I start getting involved with a lot of research projects, not necessarily leading or doing RA, but as participants, because I was curious. I mean, how people doing projects. So I participated in lots of research projects as international student. I think because of my label as international student, they want to know more about our experience, our voices, how things can be improved for international students at that point. So I'll be interviewed so many times, being surveyed, questionnaire. And then I realized at a point that the interviewers not necessarily know more about us than our own self. And what we said in the interview, our perspective, our voices actually impact the scientific research and make things better for the community of international students. And at that time, I feel like more confident because my voice, even not as an interviewer, not as a scholar at that time, is influencing scientific research and influencing the community around us. So at that point, I realized that the interviewer not necessarily know more than the participants, but they have the approach of trying to talk to many, many participants, identify patterns, themes, in order to find rules to make things better for society, for everyone. So that's the point I realized everybody is a scholar. We all have our inner scholar inside us. What we need is the training to how do we bring alive our inner scholar? How can we keep being curious? How do we gain enough skills to be able to address or channel our curiosity? We identify things around us to say, oh, we challenge things, why things are set this way. And then we can understand the world around us better and also identify issues that people haven't identified. So like, oh, maybe this is something that I could raise a question, and then I can use this approach to address this question, get the data, influence not only the theoretical framework, but also the practical elements. As Marine said, going to a classroom already coming in as the mindset of being curious. Oh, how do we improve this classroom, and how do we use the scientific methods we received to talk to the students? How do we actually make things better? So that's where I feel like scientific approach combined with curiosity make everybody a scholar.
The story is highlighting a moment of realization, a moment of self-consciousness, in which you really find the value of your voice as an international student, being interviewed by somebody who's exploring experience and looking into into learning from you, because as you said, they might not really know much about, you know, my experience, and the fact that somebody else is interested in you and gives you that voice, it is a powerful moment. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next up is Fida. Fida, you want to share a little bit about your story at the University of Manchester, because Fida, you are also a SEED alumni, isn't it?
Thank you, Nai. Yeah, I think that was like what, 7, 8 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh. Okay. So, so thank you, our gracious host, Dr. Nahielly, our panelists, Mary and Dr. Sky, and hello and good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you again for inviting me to the sharing session. So what I would like to share today is actually one story that truly reshaped how I understood what it means to think like a scholar. So interestingly, it didn't happen in an international conference, or it didn't happen while I was writing my article for Index Journal. No, it happened in my small, quiet office during my very first supervision session with my master's student. So I remember sitting in my office, I was so excited, I was so proud, and I was like, this was my moment, to apply everything I had learned. I'm going to guide and inspire the new generations. I felt ready, I was confident, I was eager to take on this newly scholarly role. So I met the students, so we had conversations. So as our conversation deepened, she began describing her research design. She was asking me questions. And suddenly, I was having monologue. In that split seconds, I was having monologue with myself. So I heard these voices, telling me, asking me questions like, you're supposed to be the expert. Like, what if you don't have all the answers? What if she realized that you don't actually know enough? So within that split seconds, my assignment actually turned into quiet panic. And I felt that my office felt very small, and then I couldn't breathe. And then, and then it happened. The student actually asked a question. It was a good, brilliant, complex question, and my mind went completely blank. So I guess at the time, my imposter syndrome came knocking by, saying hello. So I actually sat there frozen for a few minutes, and at that time I was trying to make these intellectual decisions. I could either pretend to know and bluff my way out, or I could just embrace the unknown and I use it as an opportunity for inquiry. So I said to her, that's a fascinating question. There isn't a clear, definitive answer. Even the literature is divided on this issue. And I invited her, like, let's look at the assumptions behind this approach. Let's look at, what are the practical trades-off that might come with choosing one method over another. So, and I was surprised that actually the pressure eased between us. So our conversation became richer, deeper, and far more collaborative. So I realized that this feeling of discomfort, this uncertainty, because a lot of people talking about, how we were uncertain, it wasn't a failure. It wasn't a moment of failure. It was actually the very essence of scholarship. And that was actually my first real lesson. It's not about having this archive of answers, it's about having a disciplined curiosity. We mastering the process of questioning, reflections and explorations. It's about intellectual humility. That's what I learned, actually. The courage to admit that we don't know everything, despite our PhDs, despite our papers, we don't know everything. And it's also about critical thinking, our ability to examine ideas, evidence, and perspectives. And also it's about shared inquiry, that we have to acknowledge that knowledge grows strongest when we build it together, either with our colleagues, our students. And over time, I came to realize that my scholarly voice was shaped by my interactions with my own postgraduate supervisors. So they taught me that humility is not the same as infallibility, meaning that even the most experienced professors they can make mistakes and they can change their views when they are faced with new evidence. So true expertise is not about the fear of being wrong. It's about it's about being open to growth, to challenge, and to revision. So yeah, that is, I guess, one of the, I would say, first experience that shaped my scholarly voice. Besides that, of course, my colleagues, they normalize the struggle, whenever you talk to them, and we normalize expressing how hard it is.
Yes.
And then we have to be honest about it. And also, especially my students, I think the most important thing will be my students, they actually, they challenge you, to question about your own self, like you call yourself a mentor, so prove it. So I guess that is something that I am very grateful for them.
Yes.
So in conclusion, if I could say that scholarship is not performance of knowing, it's a partnership in learning, definitely. So now when I think of a scholar, I don't think of a person, with the glasses, thick glasses, standing in front of a mass lecture hall, dispensing wisdom. Nowadays I think of a scholar like a circle, a community of thinkers, where we are invited to wonder, to ponder, to questions, and to learn together. So that is important. So I went through the shift, I was certain because I had my PhD, to the spirit of uncertainty and curiosity, because there's so many new things to learn. And I'm actually happy that I'm, with the right colleague, with the right environment where I can actually explore this.
Yes.
So I guess that's my story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that honest story and for describing that feeling of, the imposter syndrome, that feeling that, it never goes away. Once you start your academic life and you are within living, teaching, learning as a student, here, it's always with us, but embracing it, yes, I don't know everything, and you shouldn't know everything because it's impossible, but sitting with that moment, that word you said, I froze for a minute, but embracing that moment of vulnerability, because you're supposed to know it, isn't it? You are the supervisor, you are the person. It is really, really a really good learning experience, thank you for sharing that with us. Right, so it's time to open the floor to the audience, you listeners who are there. Audience reflections and are open. Sharing is voluntary. This is a moment for you to think about the stories that you heard and what really resonates with you. Remember, this is not a Q&A. It's more about, what did you learn? What did you hear that is similar to something that you experienced? So for that, I have a question to guide the conversation and the response to these stories. And I'll put a question right here. Well, actually 2 questions, yeah. Hearing the stories or hearing others share their experiences, what is one key learning that you have experienced? So that's what you're gonna take with you. Another question you might think of, and this is, I'm gonna give you this slide to take with you for your breakout rooms, is if you had a word, we go back to the beginning, a word, an image, or the feeling that has stayed with you after hearing this experience, what would that be?